Good morning, Collabcast listeners. This is Captain Dave Jackson coming to you from sunny Hendersonville, Tennessee. It's not only sunny today, it is hot and humid. Sultry is what I call it. Dew point. If anybody knows what a dew point is, it's like 68 degrees dew point. That's pretty high. You get in the 70s and you can't walk outside because you just can't breathe. But anyway, enough about the weather. I'm super excited to have on Collabcast today Julie Levine. Julie is from Orlando, Florida. Julie, welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. I know our listeners are going to enjoy it. You have led a illustrious insurance career, and for a lot of people, they think it's not that long, but it's 16 years,
Yeah.
right, at your
Yes.
agency so far. So that's incredible. And we got a lot to talk about insurance-wise and community-wise, some of the things you do in the industry and innovation, because you're speaking this year at Innovation in October in Chicago. Before we get to all of that kind of stuff, I want our listeners to learn about Julie. And so from what you told me, born and raised in LA, you were a Cali girl.
Yeah.
And you have a twin sister, but your mom was not too keen on the earthquakes in Southern Cal. So that prompted, and your dad was from Utah? Is
Yeah.
that how it went?
Yep.
Yeah. So your dad's like, well, let's haul out to Utah. So during your school age years, your family moved to Utah. You ended up going to middle school and high school there. And from what I understand, you jumped about 20 states to the right from Utah to Massachusetts to go to college at a little bitty school that I had never heard of, Brandeis University. I presume that's a 4-year private college, but man, that had to be super expensive, right?
It was. I was happy to have some support from my grandparents to make it feasible for my family. So I was really fortunate to get the opportunity to go and then live in an amazing place. Boston is one of my favorite cities. I was actually just there last week.
Very cool city. Yeah. Oh, is it? It's a really cool city. Yeah. I've been there a few times. Love it. So, what's your favorite flavor of chowder? New England or Manhattan?
I'm allergic to fish and shellfish. So corn chowder.
I'm so sorry for you. Oh, corn chowder. Okay, no fish.
No.
Oh, I love New England style clam chowder. Oh, so good. The red stuff, not so much, but the creamy white sauce, yeah, very yummy.
Never
So,
had either.
Moved to Boston, but can't eat seafood. Oh,
No. And now I
that's
live in
so
Florida and I can't eat seafood. So
and you're by water and there's all kinds of seafood and you just can't do it. That's unfortunate. So college, did you go there with the idea that I'm going to learn as much as I can about the insurance industry because that's where I'm headed?
not even close. No. I was
most
an
people say
environmental, environmental studies major, and also an American studies major. So my plan was go into something with environmental sciences. I graduated in '07 and then was looking for a job in like '08. And for those who may not remember, there was a bit of a recession in '08 and nobody's hiring.
Housing crisis. Yeah.
Yep. Nobody was hiring. But in college, I met my now husband and we were engaged. So I moved down to Florida and his parents owned an insurance agency.
So why did you move? What prompted moving to Florida, you and Jason?
Well, he's from here. Jason's from Orlando. And so he was sort of moving back home and he was like, well, let me try on the agency for size. Because it would be dumb for me not to try it, was sort of his thought. So he was already in Orlando. He graduated a year early. So then I graduated, moved on down, and his parents hired me because I needed to pay my car payment. And that was 16 years ago.
Isn't that funny how everybody has a unique story about how they got in the industry, and almost nobody says, yeah, I planned it when I was in junior high and went to high school and college, and it's all because I wanted to be in insurance. None of us say that.
Nope.
We all have a roundabout way of getting there. So that's funny. So in Orlando, so let me back up. Harry Levine Insurance. I presume that's Jason's dad.
Yes.
Okay. So Harry, your now father-in-law, started this agency. How long had Dee had it before Jason even started working it?
Well, he was a nationwide agency, so that answer is always a little convoluted.
Oh,
He started over in
that
the Tampa
is.
Bay area as a nationwide
Mm-hmm.
agent,
Mm-hmm.
was on a producer development program, which really helped him succeed during a lot of the hurricanes, because when Nationwide was shut down, they still let their producer development team members produce. So he succeeded. And then some agents were retiring in Orlando and they needed an agent. So they offered him a chance to get off the coast and said, hey, you can take over these two books. They're about the same size as your book in Tampa. You leave your book in Tampa, but move to Orlando. So Harry uprooted his family from Tampa, moved to Orlando, and then was a nationwide agent, continued until Nationwide pulled out of Florida, which was 2008, which was right about when I jumped in. And so I never really knew true independent. I was right there on the cusp of, true captive. I was right there on the cup as we were moving to the independent agencies. So it was a really interesting time.
Okay. And that was because Nationwide pulled out of the state of Florida.
Yes.
So most people know that about 4 years ago, Nationwide abandoned their captive agency model and went and they allowed their agents to all go independent if they chose. That was the only option. Couldn't stay captive or exclusive any longer. And that happened about 4 years ago. So that had nothing to do with your situation because 16 years ago, your father-in-law decided, or Nationwide decided, to leave the state of Florida. And that's when Harry said, I'm going true independent.
Yeah, yeah. If Jason
Okay.
hadn't been on board, I don't know if he would have done that, because he
Mm-hmm.
always said the independent world was not what he knew. It was sort of scary, but that Jason was sort of the future. And at that point, I was still like filing files,
Right.
because we had files. It was a
Right.
very different role that I was in 16
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Yeah, compared to today. Yeah. So at some point, your father-in-law, Harry, uh, has left the agency, correct? Retired or left
He's
working in the agency?
he retired a few years ago, and then he actually passed away about a year and a half.
I see. Okay. So, well, thank you, Harry. Rest in peace for bringing Julie and Jason into the insurance world because you guys have really made an impact on in a lot of different areas, not just with your agency, but in your community. Because I know some of you what you've done. So, and for the state of the insurance industry in the state of Florida, because you're very active. I know that, and that's one of the things you're going to talk about at our conference this year is why it's important to be involved in your industry from a lot of different angles. So that's something cool we'll talk about here in a minute. So you start out as a file clerk, that kind of thing, back office kind of work. At what point did you actually get an insurance license, jump in, you and Jason jump in and become like full-fledged owners?
So I'm trying to think. I got my license. It took a few years because I didn't need a license at that point. I was really
Right,
working
right.
on the workflows, getting us paperless. We at the time were transitioned to applied TAM from the nationwide
Mm-hmm.
captive system, so it was figuring that out, how it all
Right.
worked. And then honestly, I'd have to check. I don't even remember what year I got my license. Got my license, and then over the years, Jason's parents decided to sort of step back and then transition that ownership over to the next generation. Like I said, Harry said independent wasn't for him. He was nationwide
Yeah.
through and through and all the way blue. So, but it gave us the opportunity to take an established book of business and grow it. We've been very successful, thankfully, and very lucky. Getting appointments after Nationwide left was not difficult. Carriers were calling us, courting
Right.
us, taking us out to dinner. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We
so we
feel
were very
important.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it's like,
feel
ooh,
important, right?
we're
Yeah.
important. They want us.
We're the,
They want us. They want to give us an appointment.
yeah. Those days will come back. It's not
Yes.
that way right now, but
No,
those days will come back. It's just the opposite, pretty close right now,
it is.
because carriers are not giving appointments in a lot of states. So it's funny in the access uh, part of the industry, carrier access. Um, IAOA is involved as a um, white label program for one of the networks in the industry, which coincidentally was founded by a nationwide agent when they split off 4 years ago. But that's just a coincidence. But the network folks say there are six bad states right now. So Florida is one of those six bad states right now. California, Texas, New York, Michigan, I forget all of them. But bad meaning it's tough to operate in. It's really tough. Of course, you guys have had all the weather issues and, claims that are just like off the charts. And you've got, you've got legal issues and fraud and widespread issues that have affected your operation. But let's back up to you. So you moved from Boston to Orlando. Was moving to Florida a bit of a shock?
Yeah. It's hot here. It's super humid. I have curly hair. My hair does not like the humidity. And it felt at the time, Orlando didn't feel like a community of residents. It was just tourist junk. So it took me a while to sort of find my Orlando. And it has grown substantially in the past 16 years. There are local places. The downtown area has grown. It's grown on me. But for a while, it was hard.
So from your viewpoint, how much of the metropolitan area of Orlando centers around Disney?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, Disney's like the largest employer around. And then across the street, like I could almost see Universal Studios outside my window. And then SeaWorld is just like 10 minutes that way. So we're sort of in the hub of tourist central. So just the theme parks in general play a huge role. But what I love is we're now getting this great restaurant scene. Michelin finally came out and gave us some stars. There's some stuff to do here now that's not just Disney and SeaWorld and Universal.
Although Disney still rules the roost pretty much, because
for sure,
like you said, they're the largest employer, and there's a lot of visitors that come there to spend a lot of money because of this big old theme park and and all the things that Disney World, SeaWorld, Universal, all they have to offer. So I mean, it's a cool destination and it's a fun place to visit. I've never lived there. I've never lived in Florida. I don't know that I would want to. Just humidity just knocks me out. So that's why I moved to Arizona. It's hot. 119 the other day. 122 is the all-time high. And people are just, I couldn't die. I'm like, you wouldn't. It's not like any of you that are familiar with 98 and humid or 92 and humid. That's way worse, in my opinion. But I'm not a winter person. So being an Iowa guy, growing up and raised in Iowa, living in Nebraska, I just could, at some point, I just couldn't take it anymore. So I had to head to the desert. So now I live in Nashville, Tennessee. It's humid here. And today it's like the hottest day of the summer so far. So I think we're going to hit 98. We don't hit 100 too often, but I know you guys can, and that's just got to be unbearable. Like you don't even go outside. You just stay inside.
Yeah.
Learn to love your AC and
Yes.
or later on jump in the pool, and just stay cool.
Yep, that's it.
Yep. So my envision of you and Jason with your agency is that you took over your father-in-law's independent agency, although he was as you said, he was really more a blue bug captive. But so you guys really had to modernize this agency, didn't you? Like you said, we had to go from paper files to bringing on an AMS system like Applied and one of theirs, so that you could make everything more electronic, more modern. And were you instrumental yourself in that transition?
Yeah. That's sort of where I found my niche, is I really enjoyed working with the management system and building out as much as I could to increase efficiencies. So over the years, we've done that. We've since migrated to Applied Epic, where I've built out tons of automation and efficiencies and workflows and tasks and activities and everything. And I love it. But that's really what Jason and I did was like, okay, let's modernize things. Let's speed up processes. Now we're going from one carrier underwriting guidelines to 15, 20. How do we handle this? How do we keep the team educated? How do we just be independent? Because we didn't really know. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to be captive. I didn't know how to be independent. So I was just like, let's just do this. And it's worked over the years. I think we're 99.8% paperless. We try to adopt or at least test out as many different technologies, really anything to make my team as effective as possible. I'm willing to try something out and see what we can do.
That's cool. Tell us a little bit about your agency, the makeup. So mix between personal and commercial.
So traditionally, when we went independent, we were, I think, about 90 personal lines, 10 commercial. I could be off a little bit, but definitely personal lines heavy, which was much more of like the nationwide model. Our goal is to get 50-50, but with premiums increasing as they are and just personal lines growing crazy, we're about, I think, about 35 commercial now, 30 commercial, 60 personal lines, somewhere around there. It's hard to keep up from day to day.
Okay. So growing more on the commercial side, your hope is that you do.
Yeah. We have been, and we have a great team, a great commercial lines manager, and we've been growing, but then the personal lines side just grows even faster.
So in 16, I want to ask one more thing about your agency. So give us an idea of size, like premium or revenue or number of employees, and do you just have the one location office-wise?
So over the years, we've had one or two locations. With COVID, we decided to just bring it all in one location. We had a location that was acquired with an acquisition, the only acquisition we ever did back in 2010. We kept that office open. It was in a nice area of town, sort of like our other office. So we thought, prestigious and good footprint. And then with COVID, nobody cares. It didn't really matter. So we just brought everyone in-house in one location in the Dr. Phillips area of Orlando. Team member-wise, I got to count. I never can remember. Let's see, what are we at now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's a good problem to have, that you have to count the number.
So we're at 12, but we do have 2 seats that we're trying to fill. So somewhere between 12 and 14. That does include 3 team members that are virtual assistants. That we love and have a great relationship with and have been just amazing to have on board. So yeah, that's the agency.
So now that we're back from COVID, how much of your office is hybrid, remote versus in office, in person?
That's a great question. So Jason always says that we do remote for the 3 H's: hardship, holiday, and hurricanes. So we really believe in having people in the office and learning from each other. You hear someone answer a question from a client and you're like, oh, I love the way they handled that. Or you have a question on something and you overhear another team member had that question. So then we all get together and I'm like, hey, let's discuss this. Oh, we need a refresher on this. Great. So we really believe in office, but we do have some people that live down by Disney, and the traffic here is horrible. So there's a little bit of a reprieve. We have a few team members that will do like 1 day remote a week. And then we have a gentleman who's retiring at the end of the year. And so he works remote, I think three days out of the week and then 2 days in office. But other than that, I'm in the office every single day. And if you live close by, you're in the office every single day.
Gotcha. So it is a little bit of a hybrid, but it's on a case by case basis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But with each employee, depending on the circumstances. Okay. Very cool. So, after COVID, you came back, and did anything change for you, automation or IT wise, or did you implement some things that were caused by COVID, or anything change at all with your agency operation?
Well, we were already cloud-based when it came to our management system, so thankfully that was fine. And we were already VoIP
Right.
for our phone system, so the transition to having people work from home for a few weeks was not too difficult. We didn't have enough laptops, so we definitely went out and bought a lot of laptops, which now everybody has a remote station at home and in the office. So that's something a little bit different. I think we really pushed with, I had always really been big on not printing. And I think that's the tree hugger in me and finding the efficiencies. And so we had a team member like, well, am I getting a printer or a scanner? And I was like, well, no, when you work from home, you don't need one because you really shouldn't be printing anything.
Right.
And so you don't need a scanner because you're not printing. And so I think it forced people on the independent level to sort of pick up on some of the things that I had been saying of like, no, you don't need to print that. Save it to a PDF, people stuck in their old school ways. So it forced people to change. As an agency as a whole, I think we were pretty well set up with the technology that we had already. We definitely brought in a e-pay policy for online payments for commercial that we never really saw a need for before, but then we're like, oh, well, we're not in the office to accept a check or whatever. So that's been great. We're super happy that we now have a vendor for doing the payments. I think that's about it.
Okay. So do you consider yourself an IT guru, or is this all self-taught, self-learned, and you just jumped in and said, I am going to figure it out?
Totally self-taught. But yeah, I think I'm sort of the IT guru. I still, we have someone that handles the computers and making sure they're all updated. I'm not handling that. I'm really handling our software. So any of like our e-signature program, our management system, any of the things that are built into it. So the automation, like we do all of our automated emails inside of Epic. Our rating is all inside of Epic. And I just jumped in and learned it. I've been very involved with the Applied Client Network, which is the users group of Applied users. And for just people across the country will answer my question. Hey, this is how we do it. Here's my written workflow. I'm like, yes, I don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And then I'm also, out there helping people as well, so they feel comfortable in the systems. And I really love it.
So that was one of the things that we want to talk about, because you're going to talk about that at Innovation with the industry. But in terms of the user network with Applied, how valuable has that been to jump in and get involved with the user network? I know you're on the board.
Yep, I'm the president of
Florida chapter.
Yep, I'm the president of the Florida chapter currently. I cannot stress the importance. Oh my gosh, there are so many things that I have learned from other users on my board. We have an amazing board where we'll ask each other questions and I get an answer from a massive multi-person 100-user agency and then an agency smaller than mine. And I can see how all these different agencies work. And as you always say, we're independent, so there's no one way of doing anything. So I get all this experience. I get resources. And then, like I said, people from across the country I've had phone calls with where they're like, hey, let me show you how we do it. This is what's worked for us. If it wasn't for that, I would know where I don't know where I'd be. I know that the transition we did from TAM to Epic was so successful because of Applied Client Network and being able to talk to people. And they told me, hey, make sure you do this, don't do that. And so it made it this seamless process.
Yeah, very cool. I was reading on your LinkedIn profile that at one point, some time ago, you worked at Disney World.
I did.
So I presume almost I don't know, I know a little bit about Disney, but you can tell us, all employees have to go through some sort of customer service training, because that's Disney. You have to live the Disney experience, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so how much of that training, you were only there like a year, not a short time, but how much of that experience, it can easily be argued that Disney knows how to treat a customer better than any company in the world ever. So how much of that benefited you with now applying any of that to your agency operation?
Oh, huge.
How much Disney can we find in Harry Levine Insurance?
Looking around, not too much, other than my daughter.
Not visually. I mean, the ideals and the teachings that Walt would instill in all of his employees.
Yeah, no, the customer aspect, the relationship with the customer, how they are super important. We are here for the customer. Huge role. I don't think I realized it right away until sort of later on in life that I would realize like, oh, that's something I learned at Disney, or I do this because of the interactions I had. So when I worked at Disney, I worked in the greenhouses at the Land Pavilion, and I gave tours. And so I was put in front of a group of complete strangers, sort of one-on-one, and then I had to talk to them about the plants in the greenhouses and the operations, and ask, keep them involved, educate them, answer their questions, whether I knew the answer or not. And all of those things we do day to day. I'm constantly educating clients. They're constantly asking me questions. It's very intimate, one-on-one. Sometimes they ask me questions I don't know. Unlike in the greenhouses where I'd make something up, I don't do that insurance. I say, let me get back to you on that. And then the customer relationship, being able to feel comfortable with people all around the world that I met at Disney, or our clients, especially in Orlando. We had people calling in from England, France, South America, different languages. And that exposure with Disney is just like, just another day. But also understanding that people have differences and because of where they come from. So there's different ways that they may take something. So just having that interpersonal relationship as well, just knowing, hey, like Disney, you don't point with your finger. You point with two fingers, because in some cultures, a one finger point is very rude.
Offensive, yeah.
Yeah, or you point with your hand. So you always know around town who's worked for Disney, depending on how they point. But it just makes you think like, I need to be careful about how I'm presenting myself or how I come across, because every culture is a little bit different.
Sure. That's very cool. We had our innovation conference, IAOA did a few years ago in Orlando. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we did was, for all the attendees, we handed them a Disney book called Be Our Guest.
Yes.
And that little book has a whole lot of wisdom in it. And, it was authored by the Disney group. So
yep, the Disney Institute. I have a copy. Mm-hmm. We actually have multiple because I had the whole team read it.
It's got a lot of nuggets in it.
Oh yeah, the Orlando IAOA was the first one that Jason and I attended. To be honest, because we're like, if it sucks, we didn't have to fly or get a hotel room. And obviously it didn't suck.
Right.
And that book, our whole team read it, and we really had conversations around it. We did sort of like a book club type thing. We loved it.
Cool. That's very cool. So you talked about working with the Applied Users Network, but you're also involved in a lot of other aspects inside the industry, like your Florida chapter of the Big I, which is our industry's largest and oldest association that agents and agencies can belong to. So I know you're involved in that as well. And I don't want you to give away all your nuggets and all your information that you're going to present in Chicago in October, but give us a glimpse of what you personally and Jason, what your agency is involved in terms of the industry, the legislative aspects, the any other aspects that you get involved in, not just to help your agency, but to help your little network or chapter of the world in Florida. Mm-hmm. Tell us how you're involved and why you get involved.
Well, I think the why is super easy because it's important. Like you said, it does help our agency. There's a selfish level there. If I can educate my team members on what's going on in the industry so they can educate our clients, it's a win-win. It's fun. I know that sounds weird, but it is fun. I enjoy meeting other people in the industry, that networking aspect of it. And so much comes out of it, of referrals or help, or just, again, that fun aspect of it. And then it's important for the industry as a whole. So one of the things that, and this one my husband Jason always handles is, flying up to Tallahassee or driving up to Tallahassee or DC and meeting with our elected representatives, talking to them about what's going on in the industry, why it's important to vote on a certain bill that's coming up, that's in the House or the Senate, what we like about it, how it actually impacts the day to day. So don't listen to what your Congress people are saying. No, listen to what the actual agents, the people in the field, this is how it actually impacts us. So we're very involved that way. That sort of, Jason, my husband, takes part of that. And then we've been very involved with Young Agents Council. And I hate to admit it, I'm almost aging out. I'm not there yet, but I'm almost aging out of Young Agents Council.
Happens eventually.
It does. It happens to all of us. But that has been great because when I joined 16 years ago, right out of college, I was obviously quite young. And everyone else in the insurance industry, when you look around, you're like, I'm a good 30 years younger than a lot of these people. So it was great having a network of other young agents that we can just talk with, understand what they're going through, network, and just have that nice community of your peers in the same industry as you. And then with FAIA, that's our big eye association, which is, I think it's the biggest one in the country. They are massive.
I think it is.
Keeping up with anything that they do, the education that they offer, the conferences that they have, it's just top-notch education. And that's what we pride ourselves in the agencies, making sure our whole team is educated about products, but then what's going on in the industry. And in Florida, that's so important. I know everyone's dealing with a hard market right now, and each state's a little bit different. But being able to explain to our customers what that means, what the fraud has been going on, well, what the recent Senate bills that have been passed mean, just put us in, I think, in a league of our own. It sort of helps our clients understand what's going on, and it helps the relationships with our clients.
Cool. You brought up a couple of things that I want to touch on: fraud and the hard market. So, let's just say in the 16 years you've spent all of it in Florida and your agency, what's changed the most in the last 16 years in the way business is conducted?
Wow. Now when we run quotes, if I get one quote back, I am stoked. One carrier is willing to insure a risk, and that's amazing. Before we'd have 10. And I'd be like, okay, they're all about the same price. Let's look at the coverages. Now it's just can I get you a policy? I actually just sent out an email to a lot of our marketing reps. We haven't always done a lot of AORs. They're not our favorite business practice. But in this market, there are agencies that are no longer representing carriers. We have where there are no other options for clients. So an AOR is sort of the only way that we can keep everything under, one house. Or we do have where there are so many agencies that are swamped, understaffed. Right now, we don't have any insolvencies going on, knock on wood.
But we've seen a number of those.
Yeah, and there are some agencies that have had so many that they cannot provide the customer service that they would like to because they are just swamped trying to rewrite policies. So, again, we don't really like AORs, but sometimes it's in the best interest of our clients. So that's something that's sort of new. We would never really do that in the past, but now we're like, okay, well, you have your autos with us, your home is somewhere else, you can't get a hold of your agent, or this is the only option for you. Let's at least get it all in one place, and let's see what we can do to help you.
So that you brought up another thing, carrier access. How much different is it today than it was 16 years ago?
Really, really big. The number of carriers that are currently shut down for new business production across the state or just in certain counties is insane. We have one carrier that's doing 2022 construction and newer. That's it. 1 year
or newer.
Yes, 1 year or newer.
Crazy.
We have some that are just taking 10 years and newer. I think with my house, it's a 1983 construction with a tile roof that is from 2015. I think I have maybe 2 companies that will insure me right now if I moved. Thankfully, I'm not being non-renewed at the moment. Who knows what the future holds?
Right. Yeah, it used to be, don't be too upset that your rates are going up today, X amount. Today, it's just be thankful that anybody wants to insure you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for those of us who are in less restrictive states, they find it hard to believe that it's really like that in Florida. But you're here to tell us it's real. It's 100% true.
Yeah, we're not exaggerating. I know as Florida agents can sometimes go on and on and on, but
Sure.
it's not an exaggeration. And it's actually changed the way that we've had to educate our team and the way that we respond to everyday actions. One of my team members got a call from a client, and her first reaction was like, oh, he's definitely calling about the huge rate increase. He goes, did I get a renewal? She goes, yes, sir. He's like, great. Here's my credit card.
Didn't even ask the price.
Didn't even ask the price
Didn't
because
care
his neighbors
because
had
he
been
knew.
non-renewed and he was just so happy. And so we actually now have had to re-educate the way that we handle the calls. And it's not 100%. It can't be price driven or even coverage driven. It's almost like, just, do you have coverage?
Right.
You're with this carrier. If you leave, you cannot go back with this carrier. They're not accepting new business right now, or you no longer meet their underwriting guidelines. So what can we do to maybe bring down your price? Let's look at deductibles. Let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at discounts, because we really don't want to move you, because let's say that they do an inspection. They don't like one thing, and they're being very picky right now. And then you get canceled. And then what are we going to do?
Right.
So it's been less about reshopping of really just trying to make sure that the current policy that everyone has is tailored perfectly and fits them, so that they can keep those renewals.
So do you feel like most of your clientele have heard the message and understand this is real? You should feel fortunate that you're getting a policy at renewal time, not just an increase in rates. And you know what? You can complain all you want, but I only have one. Do they believe it when you tell them, listen, these are the only options we have? Do they now starting to believe it more and more?
They really are. For a while, sort of at the beginning of this, people were like, "Man, I don't believe
I'll
you.
shop.
I'll shop."
Yeah, I'll look around.
Yeah, and then they'd call us back. Or unfortunately, a lot of them went to Farmers. Farmers was very, very low. They were priced competitively, and I couldn't blame the people. When you're saving $4,000 or $5,000 a year on homeowners insurance.
Not hundreds.
No, not hundreds, thousands of dollars. I can't blame you. But now what's happening, those people are calling us back because Farmers is leaving the state of Florida, and I can't put them back where they were because those carriers, changed their guidelines or closed or whatever the case may be. So it's definitely interesting. There's another carrier that was very, very competitively priced, and people went to that carrier, and then they had over 100% rate increases. And so then those people started calling us back, and then again, same situation. Sorry, I got nothing for you. You left the carrier you were with. I can't put you back.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the one topic you brought up, fraud. So I hear this from a lot of the Florida agents that I've talked to. And so in a kind of a Cliff Notes version, give us an idea of what was the fraud that was going on, and what were the steps that were eventually taken to correct it.
Sure. Cliff Notes, that's going to be hard. So the fraud that was happening, the multifaceted fraud. Floridians know fraud. Like, it is their suing people, and fraud are our pastimes after Disney.
There's more attorneys in any other state than Florida.
I
know that's what I've been told, and I believe that could be true.
I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't want to mess up the statistics, so I think it's 8% of all insurance claims come from Florida. 8%. Okay, that's fine. Seems perfectly normal. 75% of all litigated claims, so insurance lawsuits, come from Florida.
A little bit out of proportion.
A
Right?
little bit. So the fraud really started with the roofing fraud. And again, I'll try to make this fast. Dave, you're in your house, someone knocks on your door, they're a roofer, they claim that your neighbor had some hail damage. There'd been no hailstorms, but you don't know, you were on vacation or whatever. So they're like, hey, I'm gonna go check on your roof. You're like, great, thanks so much. They go up on your roof. They've been documented by the local news and everyone. They'd maybe create the damage. They'd walk up there with cleats or take coins to your roof. Or they'd come on down and show you pictures of a roof that actually weren't your roof with damage. Or they'd say, something that was your natural wear and tear. They'd be, oh yeah, we have a claim here. Go ahead, sign this piece of paper. It's called an assignment of benefits, but they wouldn't say that. Just sign this, we'll take care of everything for you. And what you do is you sign that piece of paper because you're an unsuspecting homeowner. You're not trying to commit insurance fraud. You're trusting this nice roofer that knocked on your door. And what has happened is you've now transferred your rights to the claim over to the roofer. So the roofer now acts on behalf of you, the insured. So a few different scenarios. They could actually start tearing out the roof before the claim adjuster can show up. Or they can just say the roof is going to cost $80,000. And the insurance company's like, hold up here. Let's, they review it. They're like, okay, sure. Let 20. This roof should be 20. No, 80. Okay, let's meet somewhere in the middle. 35. Nope, 80. So then a lien gets put on the homeowner's house. And then nothing maybe gets repaired. And that is just the first
now
start of it.
I can't sell my home.
Sometimes they don't even know that there's been a lien until they try to sell their home. Because they've signed away the rights of the claim to the roofer. And then it goes into, a huge majority of the claims now that are received by carriers come from lawyers. Why? But the FNOLs are coming from lawyers. And then we've had the one-way attorney fees, attorney fee multipliers. We thought insurance agents spoke like a weird language as is. Us Florida ones have like a whole other, language and dialogue that has to go on with all of these things that we have to keep up with. So with the attorney fee multiplier, with the way that the Florida courts were set up, is I could say, well, this was an unusual case. But of course, there's no definition of unusual. So instead of charging my average, $250 an hour, I'm now actually going to charge $700 an hour or $7,000 an hour. And so then these lawyers were charging these crazy amounts. There's a true case, and I won't mention any names of law firms or carriers, but a roof claim got settled. The insured got $30,000 for the roof. Would you like to guess how much the lawyer made?
At least double that.
That's cute. $700,000.
Oh, funny. Yeah. How? There's no possible way they put in that amount of time to justify that.
They claimed it was an unusual situation, so they were able to, with the attorney fee multipliers, charge what their unique situation rate was. So how can carriers rate for fraud? They can't. You can rate for hurricanes. Florida insurance companies know how to rate for hurricanes. They know what they're doing, but you can't rate for fraud. And so that's what has ended up happening, and why we've had about, it's like 12 or 13 insolvencies in the past probably 2 years. And why the market's in, the tailspin that it's in. We have had some special sessions, the legislative sessions, and so there have been some bills that have been passed that are a huge step in the right direction. So assignment of benefits, you no longer do that. There's some also caps on the attorney fee multipliers, the one-way attorney fees, and some other things that I think are going to make a big difference. But right before all of these statutes went into play or became legal, they filed thousands and thousands of lawsuits. Thousands. I think Morgan & Morgan alone.
This was last year, right?
This year. This year. Yep. I think Morgan & Morgan alone filed like 25,000. Insurance Journal had a headline. It's like 25,000 lawsuits from Morgan & Morgan alone. So that slows down the process of things returning to normal, because now all of those lawsuits have to go through the system and, work their way out. So it's going to be a while before we really see carriers making a profit again.
So, and from my viewpoint, the people who suffer the most are not just the policy owners, but it's the whole and general public.
Yes.
Because the court system now has to deal with this burden that they didn't have before. So who pays for that? The taxpayers. So it's just a vicious circle that just doesn't seem to have an end to it until your legislature takes final care of it. And once this backlog gets worked out, what do you think the system will be like? Are you back to 100% where you should be, or 3/4 or halfway? You think you're a good way towards getting back to normal, whatever that is?
Great question. I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't think we're going to be back to what we were before. I think we have a new normal. I think things will get better. There's been a lot of talk of new companies coming into Florida, which is sort of what we need.
Right.
So I think we'll start to see that towards the end of this year and definitely 2024. And that will really help the marketplace. But of course, those carriers cannot come in and price things super duper low to buy the marketplace, because that begins a vicious cycle that we've all seen before.
They won't be here tomorrow. And
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So
The state's gotta control that when it comes to reviewing and approving rates.
yeah, and they do. I mean, all the rates have to be approved by the Office of Insurance Regulation. But still, over the years, we've seen it where, someone comes in, come priced really low, and then, of course, those renewals start going really high, and then 2 years later, they're no longer in business. It happens.
So, have you seen any new carriers come in yet? Still too
There was one, I think, that has come into the marketplace. Another one was sort of created out of the skeletons of some other carriers. But I think really only one brand new that I can think of off the top of my head.
Are you yourself, your agency, able to write with them yet?
We are not appointed with them. We are very cautious about who we get appointed with. We don't want to have every market out there. We have very strong relationships with the carriers that we do have, which I think has put us in the trajectory of the success that we've had is because of those relationships. And we do our due diligence. We really look at the financials of the carriers. If you just have the bare minimum, something like, 20 million to open an insurance company, I don't want to be appointed with you. That's not who I'm looking for, which has really helped. We've actually dealt with only, over the past year and a half or so, only 2 insolvencies in the agency. And one of them ended up being purchased by another company. So really, we've only handled 1 insolvency. I know agencies that have had 3 going on at one time in their agency that they've had to deal with. And we just didn't sign up with a lot of those smaller companies. And so I think that sort of set us up for the success that we've had. We haven't had to deal with a lot of that. So just because they're new in the marketplace does not mean we're going to sign up with them right away.
Right. I almost feel like the state of Florida and the state of the insurance industry in Florida has been in a hard market for as long as I can remember. The rest of the country talks about it now, and they're talking about the woes of it, but also the opportunity of it, because there are tremendous opportunities, more than like exponentially more than like what you would see in a normal market. So, and we don't have time to talk about what are all those opportunities and how do you approach them and all that. That would take all day long or a week. But some of those play out in terms of getting involved in your industry. And that's one of the topics that you're going to talk about at Innovation in October in Chicago. So give us a glimpse of what your presentation is going to sound like.
Definitely. So yes, it's being involved in your industry, but then also making sure that you and your team are the most educated on top of everything that you can be. So the name of my class is called Average Ain't Much. And that was something Harry Levine used to always say, average ain't much. And it's true. So what can we do as an agency to set ourselves above and beyond? We don't want to be average. We want to be the best agency that there is. So that includes, doing additional designations and allowing licensures for our team members. We financially support that. We support them with time. We want them to get, more licenses and designations. It gives them a sense of accomplishment. It, of course, helps, their day-to-day job performance. It's great for morale. We want them to feel like this is a career. You're in it for the long haul. We want you to be with us for the long haul. So we really want to develop and invest in our team members. And then it has that trickle down effect of where we are able to properly educate our customers. So they know what's going on. So they know when we say that this is the only option for you, they know that they can trust us because we've explained things really, really well. So sort of a mix of what do we do in the agency to push education and to be the best we can be, and then how being really involved in the industry, those two things just go hand in hand to the success that we've had.
I applaud you for that, because it likens to me one of my mentors early on when I jumped into this industry. And he said, my job as a manager or a leader is to build more leaders.
Yeah.
And that seems to be your philosophy, is like, we're not just looking to have CSRs stay with us for 2 or 3 years and then move on. We're looking to build potential agency owners, and folks who want to be in this industry, not as a job, but as a career. Yep. And be proud that what they're doing is helping their community, their clientele, the industry as a whole. And they're playing an important role, not just here to punch a clock 9 to 5 and take a paycheck home. So I applaud you for that, because if more agencies did what you are doing and taking that approach, we would build our industry up even more to a higher level of integrity. Mm-hmm. And I can't find anybody in our business who wouldn't say integrity is the most important aspect of doing business. So true. I've always believed that, and I think most everybody should, if they don't already. So, Julie, I appreciate you. You've been terrific. Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing you on stage in Chicago at Innovation 23. So if you're an IAOA member and have not yet bought your ticket to attend Innovation 23, it's real easy. Go to IAOA.com, click on Innovation 23 and get your ticket. Because on Tuesday, August 1st, the price has gone up. So don't miss out on the lower price point on your ticket. Julie, thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. You've enlightened us about the state of the industry in Florida. What a crazy, wild ride you're on right now. And I know you're going to get back to more normal times, if there can be such a thing. So thank you for joining us, and I appreciate having you on.
Thank you so much, Dave. I look forward to seeing you and everyone else in Chicago.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Collabcast with IAOA with Captain Dave Jackson. Production and distribution by Podsquad.fm, Riverside.fm, and Spotify for podcasters. Special thanks to Little Dog Social Media, Terry Champion, and all our guests and listeners. If you're an independent insurance agency owner, please subscribe to our podcast weekly. You can also request to join our agency owner exclusive Facebook group, IAOA, or Insurance Agency Owners Alliance at IAOA.com. Captain Dave Jackson signs out from sunny Hendersonville, Tennessee.